like, I'm not quite sure of, or this is interesting, but I'm still thinking about it. And then always one thing that you want to take away that you can do tomorrow in your class. So something that you can try tomorrow in your class. And for me, every time I do demo lessons, just like you guys, I reflect, and I was like, okay, I would have cut it down to only be 8 cards, and I would have done this. So there was already things for me that I don't know students. And so again, as you're lesson planning, you know your students, and you're like, oh, I think I need to cut this down to 8 cards. For me, I already reflected, so I do that after every single lesson.
My third period's always way better than my first. I have learned for first period.
I know.
They're my guinea pigs.
But every time I lesson plan, I take into account what are my students, what is it for my students? Can they do more? I was really surprised with how hard they struggled with the patterns and seeing the patterns. And so that surprised me, and that's where I was like, oh, I would have only given them 8 instead of 6, and I would have been really selective on the 8 I picked.
Well, but I noticed like when you got to the fractions, you were like, let me just give you this one. That's a whole nother
Right.
can of worms.
It's a whole nother can of worms because they weren't even coming close to seeing that. So I was like, okay, since we're working with all of them, let me just give it to you right now. Because I wasn't
What you're
really,
winning now is.
I really wasn't trying to teach them how to do fractions today. So, yeah, so I
When you
was
saw
just
that it wasn't gonna happen,
Right.
I mean, you had to go ahead and tell them that way.
Yeah.
And then at least they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't hurt your goal for the
No, it
lesson.
didn't hurt my goal for the
No.
lesson. So again, just like you guys, I reflect and I am like always like, oh, okay, I would have changed this and I would have done that. But again, it's still looking at what are some of the overall things that we kind of saw, what I did, how the students responded, and then what are the things that you're going to take away and try tomorrow. So,
Well, I like the
right here.
spy thing for the group.
Okay.
That was really good. Yeah, that was good. I've never seen that happen before. So.
No, I had my back, but did anybody actually get up and go?
Mm-hmm.
He dropped his book. One boy did, I know.
Yeah, I saw the one kid come over.
And you don't require them to spy. You
no,
just
but they
tell them
can
that
spy,
can.
right.
Yeah.
And you can do it like where you send that spy from
Mhm.
every group.
Yeah, and you can have like different role cards, so you can have the role cards that you do have somebody that's a spy, or football role cards, like you have a
Yeah,
quarterback or
I have
running back or
those. Those are
whatever.
so cute.
And so the running back could be the spy or whatever, so you can do it a lot of different ways where it's like, but it's not mandatory, but if they feel like, man, I need a hint, I can go spy on somebody else. So, all right. Anything else to add, or?
I have a question.
Yes.
I was telling her, it's such a small group and so precious. They were really working hard. And there were a lot of my top middle school, so I was like, they're growing so much. What would you do different with, I mean, I have a class of 26
Mhm.
with 11 IEPs. And it's not hard. They're just not as, you know how it was very discussion based back and forth. I wrote down that you always talk in questions and they always talk in statements, which I thought was really great. What would you have done differently in a big group?
And I still would only do questions.
Okay.
And every time, so my goal is every time a kid asks me a question, I'm gonna ask them a question back and make sure they're the ones telling me instead of me telling them. I would probably in some of the larger groups, especially if they're lower level, definitely cut down the number of cards.
Okay.
Just make sure and be selective on which one.
Don't just put the first page.
Well, not even necessarily the first page, but I do like the first page because you have some of the multiplying and the dividing. I like that you can multiply by 1/10, or you could multiply by, or divide by 10, so they could see that multiplying and dividing were the same thing, which was awesome, because when they sorted their graphs, that was something that came out, and I really liked that they were recognizing those were the same thing. So definitely shorten the graphs, pick and choose, or the sequences, pick and choose.
But you would still really focus on that close proximity, discussion based.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, and they'll do it. They're gonna fight a little bit at first.
That's what I
They're
figured.
used
I
to
was
being
wondering if that's
told.
a secret something.
No, the more we can get them to talk and tell us things, the better the learning is happening. Sometimes if you're noticing all the groups are really struggling, then it's okay to come back and say, hey, let's bring it back and let's talk about this as a whole group. But I would still let them try, but maybe they only have to do 2 cards each and find the sequence instead of 4 or 5. So that was kind of my, like I said, that was my reflection. So, all right. Anything else to add?
Oh, I loved it. I like that you said talk to me. And like your phrasing of, You said, I want to share out instead of being like, let me tell you. I thought that was nice that you said share. That's what I liked. Okay.
In other words, we're all in this together.
No, I liked that.
Well, where they were able to wrap up and share with each other within their group, and then they were more comfortable on sharing out, like it wasn't just what you learned today. Because
Yeah.
some people get nervous with that.
I do that a lot with my questions too. When I want to pose a question, like even when I write it, like, ooh, I want to ask them this question, I think about, right here, I'm going to ask this question, but I'm going to tell them to think about it on their own, and then talk to their partner, and then I can get more kids answering my question
Right.
instead of me going, posing the question and going, okay, what do you think? And the kid looks at you like deer in the headlights going, I don't know, but they never had process time. And so most of the time we get the dead silence because the kids never had time to even process it by the time we call on them. So, but sometimes if they can think about it on their own for about 30 seconds and just kind of process and then share with it, they're like, oh wait, I'm being validated here and now we're willing to share out. So when I lesson plan, I think about those opportunities too.
Did you, when planning, you know how in the textbook, it gives so many facilitator questions? And a lot, and I read them like, well, that one's good, that one's good too, that one's good too. That, they're all great, but there's probably, I don't know, I feel like there's 20.
There's 20, you
Per
may have time
lesson?
for like 3.
Did you pick any of those, or
I
was
did,
it based
but
on?
what I do is I pre-script them down here.
Uh-huh.
So when I'm going around to the groups and I'm seeing how they're doing stuff, then I'm choosing which one I might ask that group.
Okay.
So depending on how they're sorting.
Right.
So the ones that sorted in the 4 different groups, I could pose the question, could you sort them in different ways? Might you sort them? You know, or the ones that were sorting them together, well, how does multiplication and division, how are they the same, how are they different?
So I couldn't hear you talking every time. You might have asked one question to this group and another,
Mhm.
so you hit 2 questions, but not to the whole class.
Right.
Okay.
It just, it really depended on what they were doing in their groups as to which question, and then
Okay.
I had the questions that I knew I wanted to pose to the whole group. So I have, a lot of those questions that are there are great for when you're walking around and you're seeing, because every kid is doing it differently, they're solving it differently. So I think about, oh, for this group, this question is like the best question for them. And it might not be for the other group, because maybe they sorted it totally different. And so, and then I'll have the questions that are like, oh, I want to ask this of everybody. So,
Jamie, since the central ladies weren't here yesterday, will you explain that again, how you do your lesson planning process with your runoff paper and?
yeah, so I like to use paper, so I print the student textbooks, the student pages, because I need them bigger, but you can do them in your teacher's editions. We wrote the teacher's edition, so you could actually do it. But I like to print them because then I can carry this around. It's much easier than carrying the big TIG around. And I mean, the one kid that moved as a spy, he dropped his book. I mean, they're big, they're heavy. And so I just print them off, and then I do all the math, and then I write all of my timing, how much I'm gonna give, what I'm gonna do, like strategies, like here I'm gonna give them the 16 graphs, but I'm only gonna have each kid do 4 or 5, and then have them share out. And then I pre-script my questions on the side, and then I have those to walk around with as I go. And I pick and choose like the most appropriate that I know. So I always know what are the ones I have to get through and what are the ones that can maybe go.
Was your plan today just to get to that third
Well,
question?
Well, that, I technically wanted to get through number 6 and have them really look at number 6 too. Because again, but that was multiplying by the reciprocal or multiplying or dividing by the reciprocal. So, but we hit that. I would have liked to. It's just we spent more time because they were really struggling with the patterns, with the sequences. So that's where I was like, well, if you really want to hit that, you know, the main goal here is that they understand the arithmetic is a common difference and you're adding or subtracting by the same number, and the geometric is to multiply. That's the main thing they need to get out of this activity, out of that activity.
So would you spend another day on this?
No,
or you're
I would
moving
move on to the
graphs?
next, onto the graphs, and you can reinforce it with the graphs. So what are we doing? What are you adding by? What are you multiplying by? What is that called? Again, making them always say the vocabulary, that might be where tomorrow I'm putting the vocabulary, common difference, common ratio, geometric sequence, arithmetic sequence, like on the board just as a list, and telling them when they talk to each other, they need to use those words, so that you're reinforcing it, so that, again, the more they say it, read it, and write it, the more they're going to be able to use that vocabulary when they see it anywhere on the test. And so I would move on. They got it where the geometric, you're multiplying, the arithmetic, you're adding and subtracting. Again, maybe those are the questions you, like my bell work tomorrow might be, okay, so I want you guys to just list everything you remember about yesterday and see if they're remembering arithmetic, geometric, and common ratio, common difference.
Couldn't you even pick up one of those other questions and have them do that as a
Exactly, yep, you can pick up one of the other questions and have them do that as bell work too.
one that they may have struggled on?
Yep, so yeah, you can have them pick up the, like whatever they are doing. So, but otherwise then you can pretty much just move on because you can reinforce with when they're matching the sequences to the graphs.
So just out of curiosity, you know, how, like this to me, it's very short, but I know it's gonna take them a while. Do you recommend with, you know, going to the next day? I guess I haven't fully processed this lesson yet to know, you know, is it that we're trying to get them to recognize that the geometric is gonna be an exponential graph and that the linear is arithmetic?
Yeah, so they'll start to see that as they're matching,
Okay.
like when they're multiplying
Okay.
by 2. As they're matching this, for that class, you might want to take out and just give them fewer of the sequences to
Okay.
match with the graphs.
Okay,
So be selective on what it is so that you can get through it a little bit
okay.
faster. For your higher level kids, give them all to them and push them.
I noticed that you also, when you were doing the sorting, the adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, I was kind of surprised you didn't have, or encourage maybe a neither, where it was like adding 2 and adding 3 and adding 4.
But they were
Is that
still
an
adding and subtracting, which was fine. So
Right.
again, they could sort them however they wanted.
Okay,
So but again, that could be a question of, well, do they all fit into that? Does it follow the same pattern? What do you notice?
okay,
I just didn't want to spend as much time there because I wanted to get to the other stuff.
Okay.
So, but if we did smaller, then, oh yeah, it was like, well, what are you noticing is happening?
okay.
They're like, well, we're adding. I'm like, by the same number or different? How is
Right.
how is it the same or how is it different from this one? And having them recognize that and say, well, could that be another group? So again, you could push that through questioning.
Yeah, you could revisit it once they talk about arithmetic
Mhm.
common differences.
So could
And
this
see
be
which one of these
arithmetic?
actually fit that
Right.
definition.
Or when they do the graphs, because, you know, arithmetic and geometric is gonna be the linear and the exponential,
Right.
but the other ones, they don't look like those.
Right,
So I
exactly.
guess you could,
That's what I guess in my head, I'm trying to make sure that they don't think just adding any number.
Right, so that was where it had to be a constant, it had to be that common difference. So
Okay.
it has to be that, that it's the same number. So again, when you're reiterating, asking them for the vocabulary, make sure, ask them, can it be different? Can I do 1, 3, 5? Like on some of those where we were adding the consecutive odd, is that the same? Is a common, the common difference of adding 2 each time?
Right.
Which one fits the ratio, which one fits the definition, and then which one would be an arithmetic
And
sequence?
there's fewer graphs than there are the sequence things, so they
Right.
threw out.
And see, that's what like,
Last year they kept them, didn't they? I don't remember.
I think they did have.
I think they had everything,
I
like,
think
I think
they
we
kept
had it
them
all
last
that
year, so
matched.
you could say these aren't.
Right.
And you could see visually in the graph, but
Right.
this year they're just all gone and they only have.
Right, again, because our focus is linear and exponential.
I mean, I just know like yesterday, when I was finishing up the increasing, decreasing, like starting with sequences, and they were supposed to sort them into like adding, subtracting, and multiplying, dividing, and neither.
Right,
My kids were having a discussion in class about the troop of triangles,
right.
because that's the one where it's like +2, +3, +4. And so some of them were like, well, it needs to be in the adding, subtracting, and others were like, well, no, it needs to be in the neither because it's adding a different number.
Right,
And so that discussion was going on in my class, and I want to make sure that they're not making a connection of,
right.
that that could be an adding, subtracting, and so it's arithmetic when it's really
questions that you pose tomorrow to make sure and just clarify, especially like, okay, so would this be the same? What is, again, it's reinforcing that vocabulary. What is a common difference? Can it be 1, 3, 5, or does it have to be 3, 3, 3, 3?
Right.
So that they're seeing that. All right, who hasn't shared yet? Let's see.
Yeah, I think we've said, I think that I had on here, well, I mean, the fact that you facilitated the lesson, you didn't just lecture. I mean, they were all working in groups with everything, with their share table. And I like that, you said if you got to a challenging one, that they could skip it and not just let that be where they fell and didn't continue on.
Yeah, because some of them will get to that one and they can't get it and then they just shut down and they stop. So it's like, just move on, it's okay.
Which is when y'all did start talking about it, and letting them share more, that they could send that slide over. So I really liked that idea as well.
Yeah.
At Central though, my kids will have to figure it out before they move on. You know, I guess I need to encourage them to, it's okay to go back to it later.
Right, right.
You know, because, you know, they're very competitive.
And that's really good test-taking strategies anyways. It's
Yes.
okay, if you don't know that one, move on and come back to that one, because you do not need to not finish your entire test, because you're stuck on that one problem.
I know.
It is
I
one.
tell them that,
I know. But yeah, no, and so that's okay, and just say you can come back, or we'll work with each other to get those ones, or help you guys figure that out a little bit. So, all right, so what is like, I'm curious as to like, what is one thing that each of you guys think you're gonna take back to your own classrooms and maybe try?
I like the prepping questions in advance and printing the kid book pages, because I'm such a writer, like this book is very me.
Right.
But I mean, I'm really good at the, okay, I'm carrying my baby, and it is in the way. So I'm gonna try and kill a few trees, but
It's heavy.
But I mean, it's like I prepare, but it's just this thing that's around, so that's nice.
And I've had teachers that have taken the teacher's edition and they very
Like put it in binder.
And put it in binder so that they have the lesson like that they've done, like stapled together, and then they put it in the binder, but they have it all marked, like this is module 1, this is topic 1. So they keep the pages very organized, and then they just pull out what they need.
I have them color coded. When it's
Yeah.
purple, it's a lesson.
Topics.
Yeah, very tabs. Because, you know, we think it's so easy to like read the page numbers, right?
Yeah, I'm like, gosh, there's not page numbers. There is, but there's not.
Yeah. I'm lucky that we had the middle school ones out for a year, so I was like, I got used to it, because the first one I saw it, I'm like, what? What
Yeah,
are you
when-
doing?
When I saw the page number, they were in
Yep.
module 2, because the page numbers repeat.
Yeah.
And she's like, why does my page look different?
Yeah,
Because
you have to make sure
module
you're in the
two.
right module.
Module
Yep.
one.
All right, so.
Well, even yesterday, whenever you said you would take the student's copy,
Mhm.
and so after we did that, the next 2 classes, I just took my students and put it under the thing. Now, I didn't have them share
Right.
and discuss, because I just wanted somebody that would allow me to even use their work under their person.
That's okay.
I've done
Baby
that kind of thing,
steps.
but, you know, they want to know, they want me to look at everything ahead of time and say, this is all right, it's perfect, I'm going to put it under there because it's perfect. So I had to make sure that I told everybody, this hasn't been checked, this is what
Yeah.
we're going to use to discuss.
Mhm.
And so, and I didn't even hit all of them, because there were,
Right.
were 8 different scenarios.
And that's
So we
fine.
only discussed the ones that I knew were problems from my first period, that I've seen from, as being problems from the years before. So those were the ones that were really discussed.
Mhm.
You know, the ones that were just +4, +4, +4, there's a reason to talk about those. We
Right.
all know that one.
Right.
Let's talk about the ones we struggled with.
Mhm.
So that was good.
Yeah, I did that in the afternoon. I just literally didn't give them a choice. I just said, I'm gonna take the book for a moment. And they're like, and I went and put it up. They're like, no.
But you know what, it's funny, is you'll see more kids writing in their book and actually filling it in, because they're like, oh my gosh, they might take my book and put it under the document
They probably
camera.
wanted to look neat too.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and
It was really interesting too, because one of my girls was like, I have to present next period and I'm really nervous. And I said, I haven't done this all day, but I'm gonna let you get up and talk about it. I was like, this is a pre-warm-up for you before you go to your next class. And she was like, I feel better, thank you. Because she'd gotten like
That's
a,
awesome.
a
Yeah, she
pre.
was like, it's not so scary to get up there, but, and sometimes with the kids, when I first have them go up, I am standing right next to them, I'm like, I am here for your support. If they're really like shy and they're really, then I'm like, you wanna bring a buddy? And they're like, yeah, I'll bring a buddy. And I'm like, okay, I go, your buddy can like, you can ask your buddy some questions if you're not quite sure, but you have to do all the talking.
Right.
And so they're like,
I would
okay.
use my Mobi, but I'm gonna set my document camera up, because I love that.
Yeah.
I argue that when you ask a student to come forward and display his work, that you're fulfilling that one bullet in the team rubric where it says students' work is displayed. My principal doesn't agree, but I'm not, I don't think I have to have something on the wall all the time in every class.
You are
This
displaying
student
student work
comes
every
and
day.
displays his thought process and his work that, right then.
It's true.
He doesn't agree, but.
Well, but unless, if
It's the
he's
same
not there to
thing.
see it, then he didn't see it. Yeah, I guess that's what he's talking about.
Well, if you do it during the,
But yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Make sure you do it during, isn't that, that's in the, it's not in the class,
It's environment.
Is it in the environment?
yeah, it's
It's
just
on one
letting
of them.
students work.
Yeah.
but that's what this is all about, is developing that environment and that culture where they can share. And so, while things might be awkward at first, they'll
Yeah.
eventually. The other thing that, you noticed is Jamie didn't write anything on the board.
Right, I
She
noticed
didn't.
that. She didn't write anything.
And so there are times that I'll pick and choose like things I want to display, like if it was a work example that I knew I really needed to talk about, then I might display the work example just up on the board. But again, it would be like, well, what do we notice? What are you seeing? And having them kind of discuss, and then I can point some of the things out as they said it. Sometimes maybe the graphs, so that when they're explaining it, they can tell me or say, see it and say it. So I pick and choose, like, what might I need to, if we're gonna do a whole class discussion, do I need to have up there? But otherwise, I try to just have the kids put their stuff under the document camera, because it's right there, and it's filled in. And the great thing is when the kids get comfortable, even if they have mistakes on there, so sometimes when I walk around, they'll be making a mistake, and I'll ask a question, they'll redirect it, I go, okay, I want you to do that, but over here, write a smiley face in the correct way. I go, but I want you to come up and start sharing, saying, well, I initially thought this, and so I started solving it this way, and then she asked me a question, and I go, oh, I needed to do this because, and making them share so they can
Because
start
other
to
kids
see.
probably made the same.
Yeah, and that way they can kind of start to see. The other thing is when the kids get really comfortable, if their work isn't correct, it's okay. If they come up and start explaining it, what is so interesting is when the kids start to verbalize it, 99% of the time they find their error. They will start to say it and then they're like, wait, no, this is wrong, ignore that. And it's really interesting to see. But again, it takes time, so I like that, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna bring your book up, and just getting them comfortable with showing their book, and then, as they are comfortable, and then say, okay, now I'm gonna have you come up and actually explain how you did it or what you did. And have them make sure they're explaining it to the class. Because sometimes when they come up and they're explaining it, they're looking at you and you're like, you're not talking to me, I'm like, you're talking to them. So having them direct their body and doing stuff to the class.
I have a differentiation question. So you've taught a whole year just using this book?
Yes.
Okay. And I know it's hard.
I am
You have
one,
to
the
pick-
algebra one, yeah.
Yeah, you have to
And
pick
it was
and
the
choose.
old version.
And it was the old version. So my question, like, for example, the lesson I'm in, the homework is way still over their heads. So I was trying to find something to let them practice to get them to that homework. And I've played with the MyCL and all that stuff. Am I missing like some treasure trove of, because I've done the skills practice and I like the skills practice. And the skills practice kind of gives me a vision of where the book is going. Because it's more like with Domain Arranger, it was just scenarios. It wasn't graphs. I'm like, oh, well, then that's okay,
Right.
I was just wondering, is there a scenario, like, and when I taught ELA, there was the online textbook had like ELL practice things and these practice things. Is there something I'm missing?
No, so, I mean, this goes back to kind of that whole, like, I never gave homework.
Okay, and it didn't have to be home. I'm just looking at
But and the
practice.
practice is more the software part.
So that's
So
what
the
I'm
more we
missing.
can get
Okay.
on the software, the easier. And our software has really high, like ELL and SPED kids grow tremendously with the software. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody grows, but the ELL and the SPED have like amazing growth. For the ELL with our software, it does work with Google Translate, so they can actually
That's nice.
translate it into their own language if they need. And there's also text to speech, so if they have a hard time reading, they can also turn on text to speech.
And then, with some software programs, you can't print from it. You have to like copy and paste and get really weird.
You can't print from our software.
can't?
No, it is, because
It's meant to be prescriptive and tracking and all of that.
Right.
Okay.
right, and so you can't print from that. So the skills practice would be like an in practice, but we don't want to send them home with it.
No, because I want them, what I'm sending them home with is like 3 problems that they can just talk about with, like, I want their parents to know what they're doing.
Right.
Because my kids, home involvement is huge and it's lacking.
So I used to send my kids home with summaries. I want you to summarize what we did today in class and summarize what you learned, one thing you learned, one thing you didn't, and maybe give me an example of one arithmetic and one geometric at the end of this.
Okay.
You know,
That's kind of what
that
mine looks
might
like
be
without
like my
summary.
homework. I had to take my parents out of it because my parents were doing my homework and the kids were turning in with their parents' handwriting on it. So I was like, dude, how do I get my parents out from doing the homework for the kids?
See, mine's more the opposite. Like, I want my
Yeah.
parents to know they have a math class.
Right.
And to know that this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
And so just have them writing summaries.
Okay.
And again, those are some of those, like even like when I think about the like avid schools and any of that, the big push is like, let's have them summarize, because when they can reflect and summarize, they're also getting such great learning. And I had more students turning in their homework if I had assigned them summaries than I did if I gave them problems to try. So.
I got on the software last night, and, I mean, I like it. I think for my kids, because I have the advanced honors, they'd be able to quickly, with what we've already taught, and what they've learned in class, that they will be able to get through for those first few lessons very easily. But also for the ones that are still struggling with that independent, dependent, there's that practice right there for them
It's
to get some
amazing.
additional practice.
Mhm.
I didn't get very far in it, I just wanted to kind of see, because I'm going to use it tomorrow in class, and so I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing for them. So I really like it, and I think I think they're right, that that's where they're going to get that extra practice that we want them to have. I think that is the treasure trove.
And like I said, it's kind of like having, if you have 30 kids in your classroom, it's having 30 of you in there, because it's watching every single step the kids are doing. So just like if you were sitting next to the
Yes.
kid and you saw them make a mistake, you're gonna stop them and say, hey, let's talk about this. You're not gonna let them do the whole problem wrong as you watch. And so that's what the software does.
And there is the getting started part that they're going to want to skip. They don't need to skip that. They need to actually, because that tells them how to work through and answer the
How long
questions
did
and
that take?
access
Did you go through
things.
that whole thing? Did it take very long?
No, the getting started, we shortened it, so it was much longer last year. This year,
It's
it
not
should
very
only
long.
take 10 to 15 minutes.
I didn't think it took me that long.
Right.
But
I mean,
I don't know, I got distracted in the morning.
I used to do the software and try to like, all of a sudden I would do it and I'd find myself, I'm on it for like an hour because I was like, no, I'm not gonna get a red box this time. And I was like competing against myself to not get a red box.
Is it still where you can't skip lessons?
They can't skip, right? So and we want them, the research says.
you had mentioned the progress bar, so they can't click the progress bar and go, like, jump to that lesson. Okay. They have to get to, like, remember, this is your goal, you gotta get to this one.
So the progress bar is actually, if it's a master-based one, lists all the specific skills they have to master before we move them on.
Okay.
So they can click on that and it says what they haven't mastered yet. So it'll show them, you've got this, and it may be completely purple, but the other ones may be like a lighter pink and only halfway through. So that shows them what they're still needing.
So I'm gonna get on there and play.
Yeah.
But you can also say, suppose you didn't get any time, you're in module 3 and you decide to use it, you could turn off those first 2 modules and start
Right.
them on.
But I like the idea of setting.
I would just
the
start
idea
them
is
where
just
they
let
are
them go
and
ahead.
let them, because it's just gonna reinforce what they've
Yeah.
already
Well,
learned.
it's spiraling back, so I think that's probably good as well. But I will say this, and I need to send out a reminder to my kids today, that they need to bring earbuds, headphones, something, because it does have little videos for each, I guess each one.
Well,
The
for
ones
each
that I
lesson,
did, there's like 2 minutes,
Mhm.
but it's not something I want to hear 30
All day.
players playing.
But
And you're
that-
getting
that's,
laptops and stuff to do this with.
Right.
Like bring them
Right.
into your class.
Have you
So,
talked to Steve
We use either a mobile lab.
about mobile ability?
You created a student account.
Yes, so Ken sent us
And I set it
that bank account, and so I set one up just for my advanced, my integrated one, and then I set one up for integrated 2 as well, just so I have an idea of what they're looking at, what they're seeing.
I
So I just kind of play around with it.
Once you try it yourself, that is kind of key to
Yes.
selling people on it.
I was gonna ask, I noticed that like for the teacher one, it's going through like my website. Can I take like a senior that I know is in stats, but is listed under our school and make an account through her so that I can see what the student side looks like?
That's
I'll
the
get
bank
that.
account for them. That's
Yeah,
the
bank
bank account.
account.
But so
That's
they
what
go
she
into
said.
the ICL and Yeah. everything? Or the Carnegie Learning Company? It will mess up your data if you do that, is the thing.
But I'm a sarcastic baby.
You want to include instructors.
Right.
And
I did
so,
that.
yeah. So
I just didn't know if
if you
they go
said
into a
that,
different area than like what website.
so
they
like
go
when the
to.
kids go on, they should be able to,
I don't even know where Clever is on our stuff.
it's on student resources.
Okay.
I think it's under there listed as, you know how they have all those different links there under student resources. I think it's there, and then their username and password should be the same as what they use for everything else.
Okay.
Isn't that how Sing set that up?
That's what I didn't know, so I was gonna try to use her, because I know she's in stats.
So we look
I was
at
gonna
it.
try to use her. to get her
I would
to how
just
they get
do
in.
your instructor.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's, and that's really where it's like we're looking at, and looking for mastery of student work, and it's that, all that skill reinforcement. So,
Way that's
which makes it really
Until I
nice.
get to Christmas.
Yeah, I do like that one. I think with that, and then like that roadmap thing that you gave us as an incentive, right, to get them along, I am going to make it an assignment, an ongoing assignment throughout the quarters, so that it's something I can hold them accountable to.
Right.
And I'm also going to see that if we can get those labs available to us during pod time, then I have that. But then I'm gonna look, I've already have booked out one day a month, but if I'm gonna make it an assignment, if I could just get a lab every other week, one day every other week, that would at least get it.
Get them started and get them going.
And get them some time in there, especially
Those higher
for,
level kids will
First time they're reading.
yes, they'll go home and do it. So I'm not so concerned about them, it's my 6 and 7 kids that it's like wanting to just do and teach anyway. So this, I think, will give them something that they can work on.
Of the door.
Right.
Showing
And
that
just
you've
some
been there.
success. I mean, the hints are there,
And then.
and
Yeah.
I feel like that would make them for them on their own. I don't think I would have to stand by anybody and say, okay, none of this.
Sorry, making it seem loose. All right, I'm not even.
Oh, no, no, no,
I'm
you're
trying to
not.
make sure I know
I'm
what
just
I
trying
need
to
to
make
do.
sure that we're on.
I think we're trying to.
Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere.
We're there till 9:43, that's right.
Yeah, we have 2 more minutes.
We have 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any last things they want to share out before we have 2 minutes left? So anything, last minute ideas or things that you want to try?
I liked it, I got a lot out of it, ideas.
I'm gonna list some vocabulary words on the board that have to be used in conversation
Ooh, I like
between
that.
students. I like that.
I have a list in my room just because my kids are not used to using academic vocabulary, and I'm like, we're not using stupid words anymore. And I speak very plainly with my kids. I'm like, these are dumb words. We're killing them. I kind of do my English. This is dead words, and they are using like, do not call this a U. It is a parabola.
I love the reciprocal, it's the flip-flop or the flip-flop.
Yeah.
The
And I was
flip-flop.
about to say, if there was a word wall that had that word, they would have gotten it. They would
Yeah.
have, oh, reciprocal.
Well, some of our middle school teachers, like with,
Yeah.
is it a function or not with a table, they call it cheating X's.
Right.
And my kids they were struggling cheating X's.
X's.
So I told them, your X values, they're D's, and your Y values are
They'll
ladies.
say cheat, and you're like.
And this guy's name's Zero. Zero went on a date with -1 and 7. He is not functional. And they love it and they get it. But I'm like, can you write this on a test? No. Like, so I had a kid yesterday, she goes, real talk, I know the stupid way. I can get this right, but I can't explain it. And I was like, okay. So I know that's silly and I know it's not the best, but it is really helping my low kids change the way they speak.
One of my kids did write it on the test, and we'd never used it in class, because I'd never,
Right.
like, I hadn't heard of
So
it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I had one kid write on the
Well, and
test.
I just, mine is, I start my lesson avoiding the issue. Like if I just don't say it, they won't bring it up.
Right.
That did not work. They all brought it up, they all thought it was great. So I was like, okay, let's talk about the stupid way. You're not stupid, this way's silly. And they all laughed, I was like, can you write this on the test? And they're like, no. So they laughed about it.
Right.
And I was like, what can you write on the test? And they are saying every input can only have one output. And I was like, oh. You're all geniuses.
Yeah.
I love you so much.
So that's where it's like, if you look at the topic and kind of think of all the big words and just write them up on your board and say, every time you guys are talking to each other, you need to use a vocabulary word. If you guys go to ask me a question, you need to use a vocabulary word.
And tell
And
those
it's being able to
jokes
walk away
does
going,
matter.
I don't hear a vocabulary word. When you have a question with the vocabulary, I'll come back. And they're like, wait. I don't understand what a function is. I was like, all right, I'm liking that better. But when they have that,
I made a joke about how it's not parabola, like we're not getting Ebola here, and they know what it is now. And I'm like,
Right.
that was not even a good joke, guys, but they got it, so who cares?
yeah.
So, I like it.
And we want you to
Having a word.
turn this in.
Yes, we'll have you guys.
Oh, no, I need this, okay.
Well, maybe we can get one of you to go make
Let me write my list, I'll take a picture, and then you can have it.
Perfect.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, we're good.
I want this.
I'm sorry.
I'll go make copies.
Well,
That's
let's
fine.
get Carolyn to make copies. We will.
Sorry.
But we get to keep this.
Yeah, you're gonna keep that. It's just the reflection, the final reflection kind of thing. If you guys, we can get copies made or whatever we need to.
Sorry, we're all nerds, we want all of our notes.
It's okay. I understand.
What about the
that.
other one? Do I get to keep?
You can keep that one,
I
yeah.
get it, because there's lots of stuff.
No, you get to keep that one.
Would you suggest having them cut those out, or she already has them cut
So
out?
if I want my kids to cut those out, if I want to
Yeah.
like shorten how many,
I just
then
want-
I'm gonna cut them out and just make
Because
either
it's-
ones per group. Well, no, but if I'm gonna shorten them, I'm not gonna give them all to them.
Oh.
I don't want them to do them all, then I'm like, who am I gonna cut? Because otherwise you're gonna get, well, I cut A out instead of B. Yeah, I didn't want that.
Caleb was leaving, so he
If I'm
was
gonna
out.
give them all to them, and they're, you know, I like when I say that's their bell work for the day, I'm like, look, you've got 2 minutes to cut these out, they don't need to be pretty, they don't need to be perfect, but cut.
Oh, they haven't.
Sometimes I just had my first period cut, and then I gave them baggies, and then I had them for every other class. So, sometimes I.
Then you don't let them
Huh? Well, if
Well,
it
we
was,
might
I
as
would
well
let them
make
write on them. This particular one, I probably would have had all the kids cut them out, or given them each, I would have made enough for each kid if I would, because these ones I think they needed to write on, because they needed to see the patterns, and they needed to see what was happening. And so that's why it was more like, okay,
We
let's,
glued an envelope in our book.
nice,
Oh,
I like that.
So, yeah, maybe, or staple or something.
Something.
Do
that
y'all
they
have
can
your
keep
kids
their
carry the
glasses.
book back and forth? I've just been sending out the remind, read
Well,
pages, blah, blah, blah.
I have, but I think I'm gonna, see, I'm a floater, so I think what I'm gonna do is have those classrooms and see if they can get me somewhere in the classroom just to leave
Right.
their books. And then I let them, like, if we do something out of the book, they tear it out.
I used to have my kids tear out just a topic at a time, and I kept the books for my class. And then when they finished their tasks, those students that finished early could go tear out topics for me for the next.
Well, yeah, and that's how I tried to do it that first year, but I mean, I would spend half the class period just tearing out, because I'd have some people that would try to tear out one page at a time, and then chunks at a time, and then chunks at a time. We could
So
work on
that if
that.
I had a student aide, I would have my student aides do
Yeah.
it. If it was after a chapter test, you always had those few that finished early, I'd make them tear out and get the chapters ready to go. But I did that out of necessity, because one of the schools I was in, we had 30 kids in a week and 30 kids out a week. So if I didn't keep the books in my classroom, I would be ordering books every week. So we were like, let's just keep the books, and it's easier to do a chapter than it was to try to buy a whole new book.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it there. The other high school that wasn't like that, then I just, at first I had to keep the whole book, but then they were falling apart at the end anyways, and so then I started keeping them in my classroom and pulling out chapters. Because I was like, oh, it was easier for them to keep them in a binder. And then if they needed to, like if I wanted them to get up and talk, again, those books are really heavy, whereas if I wanted to get up and talk, they could take out that one page out of their binder and they could carry it with them and talk about it.
And these are hole punched, which
Yeah.
our middle school teachers have been asking for holes in their curriculum associates books, and we don't have, they don't have them.
No, yeah, I'm pleased with that, yeah.
So,
As long as
I
my
like
kids
the-
remember to bring.
And they're good preparations, I know that doesn't matter, and like when you make a book, you don't think about that, but it matters.
oh yeah.
Like when they go to turn something in,
They're like,
it's pretty. I only had one that was a half sheet. It was
Yeah.
so nice.
so are we until grade right now?
No, I just wanted to have my room ready just in case.
I
If we're
wanted,
finished, this is
This is it.
All right, students, back this is Mr. Parker. We are going to start our monthly drill. One drill we're going to do first is our code red. This is a drill, but we are in code red this time.
Oh, we have till
At this
next
time, we are in
week.
code red drill. Thank you.